Hi, I'm Kay of Kay's Creative Home. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're here for the first time, I'd like to welcome you and hope that you'll become a member of the family by hitting the subscribe button. Today I'd like to share with you how I made this bling garland and ornaments for the upcoming holidays. Let's get started. Well, I'm starting today with this roll of bling wrap or bling ribbon. I purchased it, I believe, at Tuesday morning in the after Christmas sales last year, or in January, so earlier this year. And it was $8.99 originally, and I believe I got it at 40% off. Even $8.99 would have been an excellent price for this large roll. So I'm starting off by counting out rows of 6. And the little bling studs are kind of woven together, so there's like a line in between each one of stitching. So I'm just cutting along that line. It's a really nice way to measure out what you need. And then I'm going to count up 6 and cut across, and that'll make the little square that I will be using to make my garland, and also I will use it to make my ornaments. So once I have that done, you can see that little stitching is on the side. So I take the time to trim off that stitching. And it takes some time, but it makes it look a lot neater in the end. It makes it really look like it was bling instead of something that was stitched together. Now I'm going to cut out the center 4 studs that are in here in the 6x6 square that I made. And that'll leave me the little opening in the middle. Now that the little center opening is 4x4. I'm not going to throw that away because I'm going to be using that for my ornaments later on. Next, I'm going to cut a strip that's going to be 2 studs wide, and I'm just going to go across the rest of this ribbon I have here. And from there, I'll decide if I actually need this full length or if I'll shorten it. And in the end, you'll see that I do shorten it, and I end up with strips that are 2x14. So I'm going to cut a few more of these squares and cut out the centers, and then I'll be ready to show you how I put them together. And just as an FYI, this was inspired by Rebecca Robeson design in one of her Christmas videos. She actually had a circular garland that was made of bling, and I found it on Shinoda in a square design for $142.95 for 5 yards. And then the Christmas ornament that you'll see later was inspired by an ornament I saw on Wayfair for $29.99. So the next thing I do is take 2 of my squares, and I'm going to put them back to back and glue them together so that on the outside is the bling. No matter which way you flip it, you'll see bling. And I'm going to use hot glue to attach those 2 together. And you have to be careful here because what I do is put it on like 2 sides of one, and then on the other I put it on 2 sides. And that way when I bring them together, there'll be glue on each side. But it's kind of hard to maneuver them or pick them up if there's glue everywhere. So just be careful with doing that so that you don't burn yourself. So now I've got my 2 squares, and I've got my strip that was 2 studs wide, and I'm trying to decide the best way to connect them. Now doing this is kind of like doing the paper chains we used to do as kids, where you take one thing and then hook it to the next, but I'm hooking 2 of the squares together. So I'm bringing that strip through the opening on both sides, or through the opening of each square I should say. And then I was trying to decide if I would wrap it and just glue the strip to the other end of the strip, but I decided to glue the strip to the end of one of the squares. And so I'm going to move my fingers out of the way in a minute and kind of show you what I'm doing. It's kind of difficult to see here. So the camera's a little closer now, but it's still hard to see because how the bling is shining. But those two center studs on the bottom of that square is where I'm going to put some glue. And then I'm going to take that strip and try to attach it there on that very bottom layer. And excuse my hands. I'll try to do another angle in a minute to show you a little better. So I'm trying not to use too much glue so you don't end up with gobs of glue, you know, showing up on the other side. But so I had to go back a few times and add actually a little more glue because I was trying to be so light with it. So now that that stayed on the two studs that are, well, first I realized this was a little too long, so I did cut it. But on the two studs right above that, that's on the inner square. I hope this is making sense. I'm taking the other end of that strip and adhering it there. Now I could have adhered the end of the strip to the end of the strip, but I wasn't sure that would be secure enough. So it actually got glued on to the square. And I'm still pulling off these little strings wherever I see them. So this is how this looks. And now I'm going to go and sit in front of a movie and do about 100 more. So when I sat down and started cutting these, I decided I could cut them in strips of 12 by 6 and then just fold it over and still have the same result. And here I'm trying to show how the strip is glued to the very bottom of the square. So after hours of connecting them over and over again, I ended up with this long strip of squares connected by the two stud strips in between. And this is how it looks on a tree. So for the ornament, I started the same way. I cut my 12 by 6 strips and cut out the center squares again and tried to get all of those pieces of fiber off of the edges, folded it in half like this, and then glued just around 3 sides. I didn't have to glue all 4 sides. And this made it a little easier because I had an edge to kind of hold on to and I didn't burn myself quite as much. So I glued it down together. And then I went on to work with the little 2 by 2 squares. Now this was difficult, it was hard to hold, but I took my time and trimmed off the edges as best I could. And this is what I ended up with, a lot of little fibers. So I wore a face mask while I was doing this so I wouldn't inhale those little fibers. Next, I just laid them out on a white surface to kind of get an idea of how I wanted my ornaments to look. And I decided to do, I think, 3 or 4 of the little squares above the larger square. And then I made some metal connector circles that you can use in jewelry making. And I just made some of these to connect my pieces. These can also be purchased anywhere you can find jewelry crafts. And here are the ornaments I made with the connecting circles. I ended up with the large square and 4 of the smaller squares. And here is how they look on the tree. So it took a little time to cut this out and glue it all together, but I really enjoyed making these and I am so happy with the result. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with others. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you'll be notified when new videos are released. I have a lot of Christmas decor ideas coming your way. All right, I thank you for spending this time with me and I'll be talking with you again real soon.